Hey guys, so our next little thing, we're going to be doing a series of what we'll call typography videos. Now, typography is just a sort of a catch-all term that just refers to how you arrange text on like a graphic display or on any kind of like graphic design kind of art. And so this is going to be a little bit of graphic design here. But I'm going to just start off by showing you an example of how we might do this by doing the ACE School Pledge. Since we all kind of know the words there, we all kind of can see that. The idea with a lot of typography things is if you watch them, people come up with some really interesting ways of animating the typography and using other kind of things to go along with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how we incorporate the text, and then a little later I'll show you how we incorporate different different sort of vector art to flavor it up here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new project. I'll call it Typography 1. So let's make sure we're naming our projects just so we can keep track of them. And don't delete your projects. So definitely keep your projects up. And let's see here. I'll call the last name there as well. So I'll press OK. And just the first thing we'll do is we'll put in a color matte, and we'll keep it black, and we'll keep all the text white. And I suppose you could put anything you want. The idea is that you want your color matte and your text to be opposites. So if, for instance, you chose black, you'd choose white, and if you chose blue, you might choose orange. And once again, I'll just name this typography 1, just so when I put it into the sequence here, my sequence will be called typography 1, and I'll save it real quick. But just to show why we name these things the way we do, if I go to File, Export, Media, you can see that the name of it is going to be typography 1 just off the bat. So it'll keep me from having to really, kind of think of that. So I've got my safety margins here, my safe margins. If you don't want those, you can click on this little wrench here, and you can click off safe margins. I'm going to keep them on just because that gives me an idea of a straight line. Now the idea here is that we're going to be populating the screen with different phrases. So we're going to put in multiple text boxes, text elements. And I want to say this thing that I'm going to put in is about 24 seconds long. So what you'll do is you can either download what I gave you, and you can kind of follow along with me. And then eventually what we're going to do is we're going to make up our own. So let's see if we can't kind of figure out how to animate this stuff. And we're not necessarily going to be doing a whole lot of animation, but we are going to be doing a lot of having them coordinate when they come in. So I'm going to go ahead and get my copy of my ACE School Pledge that I recorded myself saying. Yes. Typography 1, ACE Pledge. I'll just drag that in. I'll put it down here. Okay. And I'm gonna sort of pull the division between. I'll pull this down a little bit just so I can see the words a bit better, and I'll zoom in some. Now, what's cool about this display is that you can see the little spikes, and if I play this,
We are ACE.
right, so I can hear myself saying the words there. And so essentially, what we're gonna do is just try to time our text to come in each time the word comes in. So what we'll do first, let's just click off this. I'll click my text tool, and I'll just click once up here, and I'll put the word we. Right, and I'm going to change my font to something a little more, I'd say, fun here. I'll change it to something a bit more like maybe my comic book font. Obviously, this might be a good point to do something a little more dignified, like maybe something like Charlemagne or Chaparral or something like that. Let's find something here. Do I have copper plate? I don't think I have copper plate. This is a good one. Dimitri Swank. How about no? How about just Dimitri? Alright, so this is a font I found online. If you were to find a font that you wanted, obviously you could choose a font you wanted. So I'm going to just start. Alright, so I'll start off with we. I'll click off down here on the timeline, and I'm just going to hold down Alt-click. And I'll get my move tool here. And I'm just going to see if I can. I'll put them on top of one another here, and I'll just get my move tool. And I'll grab one, drag it down. Well, make sure I'm not grabbing the anchor point here. And I'll change this one to R. Click off, hold down Alt, get my move tool here. down and double click on it, ace. Okay, so we want these words to fill up the entire screen. And so we're going to adjust their scale, but I think what would be better is if we were to, well, we could adjust their scale, adjust the font size. So I'm going to line them up inside the safe margins. I'll put this right about here, and I'll see if I can expand this out some. Grab R. I'll put this over here. And I'll just expand that size as well. I'll see if I can get about the same size as the, there's we, so we are, okay. And then I'll get ace, and I'll see if I can make ace as big as the two of them put together. All right, let's see if we can't pull these down here. Shrink this up. That's good. Right about there. Okay, so, and let's see if we can't center this. All right, so that's good. So we've got that all centered. So this is what I want my first initial frame to look like. But I want this to animate when I come around. So essentially what we're going to do is I'm going to zoom in real close, and I'm going to kind of trim the timeline down to where they meet up around the time of my audio here. I can see the little spikes on the audio, and I can just sort of time these like this, and you can see really clearly where the different words are. So we have we, are, ace, right? So I'm going to say we. I'm going to have it come in right about the time. Let me zoom in a little bit further here. Have it come in right about the time that the first word comes in. So I'll just trim that in here. We, and then I'll have R come in right about here. And we'll have ace come in right about here. So let's see how that looks. Oops. Right now.
We are ace.
Good. So that's kind of how that's supposed to look. Now, with that, what we can do is we can apply a transition for each one as they exit. So I'm going to go over here to Effects, and then I'll do Video Transitions, and I'll just do a dissolve for each one. So let's see if I can't pull this out. I'll just dissolve. Oops. Give me cross dissolve here. I'll shrink that down a little bit. Same thing here. Put a cross dissolve in each one. Now the transitions aren't supposed to last terribly long, so and these are very short clips. But let's take a look here. Let's see what this looks like.
We are ace.
All right, and so that kind of fades out. All right, so then we'll continue on. I'll do a few more here, and then I'll show you the final version at the very end of it all. So let's think here.
The Academy for Classical Education.
All right, so what we'll do here is we'll just we'll put in the Academy for Classical, and we can do a number of different design decisions. We can change the font if we wanted to. I'll keep the font the same for now, but I'll just put down here the, and then I'll just pull this right about here. And then Alt-click, Alt-drag, and I'll just move it. Let's get the Move tool here. Academy. Once again, Alt, and I'll drag. And then I'll come up here with my Move tool. Okay, Academy 4, and once again we'll just Alt drag, and we'll get that 4 down here a bit. Classical, and then we'll pull it up. Oh, let's just move it down a little bit here. Education. All right, and so I'll just have the words the Academy for Classical Education. I'll have that be across the top here. The Academy for, let me see if I can't pull it up a little bit here just to make them a bit bigger. And I want them all to line up across the top. I want them to be as lined up as I possibly can, because if they're off a little bit, then it's going to be kind of distracting. So, the same size. That's good. All right, and then we'll just pull this over here. It's a bit too big. And there's a bit of space between the words. That's fine too. And we'll just make classical education be really big down here at the bottom. We'll pull this up a little bit. And that looks about perfect. That fits it really nicely. Okay, good. So this font is working out pretty well here, and I'll make sure they all line up just on the sides. Just a bit more. All right, and so this is what typography is all about. Typography is all about the arrangement of type in order to make it look nice. And so in this case, this is looking kind of nice, and I'll separate this just a little bit more just to even up everything. Okay, and so once again, I'll see if I can't figure out where each letter comes in.
The Academy.
All right, so the Academy works, and then 4 I think is right where my timeline marker is, and I'll put this in here. Classical. I want to say education comes right about here, that really big tall peak. Let's see.
The Academy for
Okay, so 4 came in a bit late, I think. All right, so right about there is where you hear that little fricative F sound. 4. Okay, and then classical, I kind of mumble that 4 a little bit, but classical comes right about there. Classical. And then education comes right about here where that little valley is. And then everything ends right about here, and I'll make everything disappear right about there. Okay. Actually, I'll leave it on just a little bit. I'll tell you why. So I'll make this go past where everything ends, just so I can have it animate out. And what we'll do is we'll kind of do what we did before. But let's take a look at what we got so far. All right, let's see here.
The Academy for Classical Education.
All right, that's great. All right, and so what we'll do is once we get here, I'm going to put a keyframe here. Effect controls. I'll put a keyframe on position, and then I'm going to copy that. I'll right-click motion. Back on here, motion, copy that. I'll select these guys down here, and I'll just Control V. And so we should see that same keyframe, and then we'll go to the end, and we'll see if we can't get them all to go off screen. So I'll get to that last little scene there. I'll put a little keyframe, and so one by one, what we'll do is we'll just move them all down off the screen here. So I'll get all motion, and I'll just pull this down, straight down. Maybe I can't really hold down Shift, can I? All right. And I'll click on education, and I'll pull that down as well. I'll click on 4 motion. I'll pull that down. This is when them all kind of fall off the screen here, and then Academy. Pull that down as well. Oops, I didn't do a good job. Make sure I click on motion here. Pull that down. I want to say this probably didn't work, but it's fine. We'll fix it. And then I'll click on motion here, and I'll pull this one down as well. All right, so here we go.
The Academy for Classical Education.
All right, okay, that didn't quite work out. Let's see if I can pull back this. All right, so they all have these keyframes here. No, they don't have the keyframe quite yet. All right, so let's try this one more time. Once again, I'll click on motion. I'll right-click on it. I'll copy it. Let me back off, put it back on. Right-click, copy, highlight, Control V, and then what we'll do is we'll go to the end here, and once again, we want to make sure that we're clicking on motion and not anything else here. So what we'll do is we'll just click on motion, and I'll just drag it down. Motion, drag it down. Motion, drag, motion, off the screen, motion, off screen. All right, so let's see how that looks.
Education.
All right, so I wonder what's going on with this keyframe here. This keyframe looks like it's starting here. Oh, I see. I think it was actually relative to the end and not where we put the position on there. I think that's what was going on. It was relative to the towards the beginning. So what I'll do is I'll just come over here. I'll just move the keyframe right about there. I'll do the same for each one. So I'll click on the timeline. So you want to make sure that your keyframe is in the right spot. When I copied and pasted, what happened was it remembered where the keyframe was in relation to the beginning of the clip. So it put the keyframe a little bit further on there.
The Academy for Classical Education.
And they all go down. That's good. Okay. And then we can bring in the next thing. So I'll continue on with this, and I'll show you guys the final version when we come back in class. But in the meantime, though, your task is going to be to create your own version of this. Your own version is basically just going to have a similar kind of thing. You'll have to bring in the text one word at a time, and then build up the each phrase as they come in. All right, so find a nice font, and this won't take too terribly long, just to kind of get to it. All right, and so we're going to have different transitions for each one. All right, so we have a fade out, we have a fall away, and then we'll have a few more. All right, so very cool. Can't wait to see you guys produce.